Hello everyone, welcome to another Open Cluster Management Community Meetings. Today is August the 15th, 2025, and on the agenda today, QJang is going to talk a little bit about the multi-cluster namespace management. It's an enhancement proposal that was brought up by Joshua Becker, and then afterwards, Chunlin is going to talk about the Open Telemetry add-on. So Kyojang, whenever you're ready, feel free to take over screen share, etc. Thanks.
Okay, let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So this is idea proposed by Josh, and I was adding some more details on that. Um, the so to summarize, the main idea is that we want to follow the namespace sameness principles in the Sigma multi-cluster, which means when we deploy an applications or services across a cluster, this application or service should be in the same namespace across a cluster. It's also the principle that has been followed in the multi-cluster service API. So to make this achievable, we are going to we are set we are going to manage the namespace sameness across a managed cluster set. So it means that we want to allow the user to able to specify a namespace or a list of namespaces in the managed cluster set. So these namespaces will be basically managed by the OCM, and the OCM will ensure that this namespaces does exist on the clusters, on all the clusters across the cluster set. So here is some motivations, as it says. So we can have a consistent namespace across managed clusters in a managed cluster set. So when we create a manifest work, we don't care about the namespace in the manifest work. In the long term, it is possible that we will also check that whether manifest work is aligned with the namespace in the cluster set. Otherwise, the manifest work should not be applied to the cluster. And also, this is a similar for the cluster permissions. For example, when you use cluster permission to create a role binding, we should not allow the role binding to be created in the namespace that is not included in the cluster set. It should be always in the namespace of the cluster set that has been defined. So the idea here is that we should update manage cluster set API so that we can specify the namespaces, and the agent will be able to manage those namespaces across a cluster set. So yes, so there is some details, like the controller part. We need to so at first let's see the API changes. So in the managed cluster set API, we want to introduce a new field which is called manage the namespace config. And in that, there's a namespaces list, which means that this namespaces is list is a namespaces that should be managed by across a cluster set. I'm more worried about whether we should introduce another one called deletion strategy. The reason I put here is I'm not quite sure when we remove the namespace from this list, or for example, when we remove a cluster from a cluster set, how do we treat the namespace? Um, should we remove the namespace or should we just keep it? Um, so so now for this proposal at this field, so you could choose to keep the namespace on the managed cluster or on the managed cluster set, or treat it as to delete this when the cluster is not in the cluster set or etc. And to implement this, adding only this API is not enough. We also need to add another field in the managed cluster API in the status part that is going to set up the cluster set of the cluster set that the managed cluster has. Um, it could be a list because a managed cluster could belong to multiple cluster set. And in each one, there will be a name, the namespaces, which is just the same as setting on the cluster set, and also the deletion strategy, which is also the same as what has been specified in the cluster set. So it could be a list. Uh, so for the flow, the hub controller will monitor the managed cluster set, and then when something is changes here, and the controller will find the managed clusters that belongs to this cluster set, and then update the status based on the settings on the managed cluster set. And then the registration agent will going to create or delete the namespace based on the settings here. And the agent will also need to resolve the conflict. The conflict happens when there are multiple cluster set. The cluster belongs to multiple cluster set, and when there are multiple agents in the managed cluster that connect to different hubs. So to handle that, we are going to add some annotations and labels on the namespace that has been created by or managed by the in the cluster set. So will be two labels. There will be a set of labels. Each the labels is like the prefix is cluster set and dot openclustermanagement.io, and there's a hub hash as a postfix, which means that this namespace is managed by one of the hub, and if there are multiple hubs, there will be multiple labels here. And also, accordingly, with the same key, there will be an annotations, which is the value will be a JSON string that record the cluster set name and the deletion strategy. The reason to keep this is we were able to know how many cluster set is managing this namespace and what's the deletion strategy for each cluster set. So when the namespace is removed, like here, for example, when the cluster is removed from the cluster set, or the cluster set is deleted on the hub, or the cluster is deleted, or the namespace is removed from the configurations in the managed cluster set, When this happens, we need to check whether this namespace is should be removed or just update the labels and annotations accordingly. For example, if not, it is possible to remove the label if one of the hub, no matter manage this namespace, so the label and related annotation with the same key should be removed. And also, for example, if the namespace itself is removed from one of the cluster set, it is possible that we don't remove this part, but we don't remove the labels, but just update the annotations here to remove some cluster set in the values. Um, so yes, so that's a thing that we need to handle when something happens, when we need to check whether removing the we need to remove the management of the namespace. Um, but this is all the idea. Like, so with this, the user is able to specify the namespace on the managed cluster set, and then OCM will ensure that this namespace exists on all the clusters in this cluster set. So this is mainly user experience that we will expect after this uh, feature is done. So any questions?
Thank you, Kuchen. Um, if the namespace is not there, is there some reporting or something, or does it get created? That's the part that I'm a little bit unsure about. Like how.
It will be
What,
created.
okay.
Yeah, it's something like if you, for example, if you specify a Argo CD namespace in the managed cluster set, this namespace will be created on all the clusters in this cluster set. Um, and if you remove the namespace in the managed cluster set, and the deletion strategy is set to delete the namespace also on all the clusters.
Okay. But I'm just worried. What if like in some cluster it fails to create, fails to delete, and stuff like that? How would I know?
Uh, how do you know means how would the OCM component know, or how would the user know?
How would the OCM component know, or how would the user know? Oh, this namespace wasn't actually created, or something like that. Like it fails to create, for example.
Yes, I think that's a good question. I'm not sure whether we need to add some conditions on the managed cluster. Uh, to say that this namespace is some namespace is not created. Um,
Like it's not following a rule or something, right? Like, oh, I
right.
belong to this cluster set, but I actually don't have this namespace. I'm no longer following this rule. It's like a violation or something.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's all
Yes.
the question.
Yeah, I think that's yeah, that's a good point. I might need to add some kind of the conditions. I'm not sure whether we need to add it in the managed cluster set. I will think about that.
Thank you. I guess another question is we mentioned cluster permission, and I guess managed service account also works similarly. So are we expecting all, at least our native OCM consumers, to fix our controllers to abide by this new rule? Like, oh, you can't create a cluster permission if you don't have this set in this namespace or something like that.
I think that's not the goal of this proposal, but I will add it in might be in the future work or in the roadmap plan. Um, I don't want to mm, make the scope too large. The scope of this proposal is just to create a name to update the APIs in the cluster set and bindings, not bindings, the managed cluster and cluster set. Um,
Got it.
how to
Thank you.
yeah, how to enforce that? Maybe we can have manifest webhook that um checks like if the cluster doesn't status of manifest validating the will forbid webhook the webhook will forbid manifest work creation or update. Um yeah, let me add a note. I think that's also a good question.
Thank you.
Right. Zhejiang, could you please talk more about how a user uh, use this or give an example? I still don't know. For example, the namespace example in the design doc, there's annotations, the
Mhm.
class site hub one, and the class set name global and class set name set one. So I'm confused. What's the hub one and hub two? What's the global and the set one? What, it's namespace or class set
This is a
name?
namespace. Actually, this is not a namespace on the hub. It's a namespace that is created on the managed cluster by the registration agent. Uh, these labels and the annotations is only to keep the track of the information that who is managing this namespace. Um, because we could have like in the managed cluster, we could have two agents that from different hub, and this namespace might be uh, managed by both of the agent. So when the namespace is removed by one of the agent, for example, the namespace is the cluster, this cluster is removed from one cluster set of one hub. This namespace will be removed, might be removed from by, but in that case we cannot delete the namespace because it might be still be managed by another. Uh, so we need to add some kind of the informations in the namespace. So when we check whether this namespace need to be delayed. Something we need to remove the management. We need to check whether it's only one hub that is managing it. And if there is only one strategy that's saying we need to delete this hub. So that's the reason that but these labels annotations are totally internal. Maybe I think I will add in prefix on this labels annotation. So it's totally labels and to use by the agent. It's the user.
Okay, so for this feature, a namespace on the managed cluster, so it supports managed by multi-hubs, right?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's something like if we, for example, in hub one, we have global cluster set define that, for example, namespace in their spec. It also specifies some namespace in the spec. You will see something like that in the cluster, the namespace in the cluster. So the tool agent will check if some namespace has been created, and if it is created, it will add their labels into the namespace.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any question for QGen? If not, I think we can move to the next topic. Chungning, do you think your topic can be covered in? We still have 20 minutes, so I guess we have plenty of time. Chungling, so whenever you're
Yes,
ready.
it can be covered.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
It seems I can't share another desktop. Okay.
We
Can you
are.
see my command line? Or
Yes, we can see your command line terminal.
okay. Can you see my Chrome?
Yeah, it's a website. It's the
Okay.
yep.
Okay, cool. Okay, so yeah, today I'm going to talk about the OpenTelemetry collector add-on, which is already in our add-on contribute repo. So for the this purpose is that we can provide a solution in the OCM to collect the metrics from the managed cluster and report to the hub cluster. So we decided to use the OpenTelemetry collector, which is the CNCF project, and it is well used by the community or by the product. So here is the OpenTelemetry uh, uh, website. You will see that the OpenTelemetry actually can support receive and can support a receiver and the processor and other functionality, and the objective for the OpenTelemetry collector is the usable performance and observable and it is easy to extendable, and also it is unified. And actually, for our purpose is that we use the OpenTelemetry collector contribute image, because this image is have uh, more third-party support. For example, when we use the receiver, you will see that it is so many receiver is in this repo. One of our purpose is we just use the permissions, but you can extend it to support other receiver. Okay, so let's back to our OpenTelemetry collector addon. This addon is built by our addon template, and we use the addon template to deploy the OpenTelemetry collector in each managed cluster. For this proposal, we also use the permissions community Helm chart. It will be used to deploy the permissions stack in the hub cluster, so that in the OpenTelemetry collector, we can configure endpoint of the permissions so that the metrics we collected from the managed cluster can post into the hub cluster. So we can look at this configuration. Yeah, here is the configuration. We use the exporter to export the metrics from managed cluster to the hub cluster. And the exporter actually we use the permissions remote write. And we enable the mutual TLS, so you need to configure the third key and C to pass the authentication and authorization so that you can post the metrics to the permissions, which is in the hub cluster, and also we add the external label, so we can identify in the hub matrix the matrix is belong to which cluster, and here is the receiver, means that the OpenTelemetry collector will receive the matrix from where. So here we just configure the container advisor, because this is the built-in matrix, so we can get it from the Kube API server. So we just take this as an example, so we can see this matrix in the hub. Okay. Okay, so yeah, I will follow this document to give a quick demo. Firstly, I based on our quick start guide, which is we will install one hub and to manage the cluster. So I just run it to save some time. You will see we just run this, and we can create the. We will see that we have one hub cluster and to manage the cluster. And then we can execute this one because we want to use the Helm chart to deploy the permissions. And before we deploy the permissions, we need to firstly create a namespace for the permissions. And also we need to generate the cert for the permissions. Okay, but we go into this, and I provide a generate cert script, so it will generate the cert for the mutual TLS. Okay, and then we go out, and here is the deploy the kube permission stack with TLS enabled for the remote write. Okay, after that we can create the namespace for So here we will see that the permissions is deployed successfully in the hub cluster. Actually, I think that we can have a check. Okay, you will see that in the monitor namespace we have the permissions, which is it's just running, and then we can go to create a namespace for the add-on, and then we can deploy the OpenTelemetry add-on, which is will deploy the add-on template in the hub cluster. Okay, so and then we should have the OpenTelemetry collector in the managed cluster. Let's check it in the class 1. Oh, we don't have it. Okay, check. Managed. Template. Check add template. Oh, I don't have it. To go to main contacts. Oh, we don't have a manifest word created. I don't know why. Maybe I need to check it. But yeah, I run it a couple of times. I did not meet this problem. So let's continue to, yeah, when we use the add-on template to deploy the OpenTelemetry add-on, and then it should have the um, OpenTelemetry collector, which is deployed in the Open Class Management Agent add-on namespace in each managed cluster. This is based on the placement. And then after that, and you can call this is the permissions API in the hub cluster. You need to add the hub control plane into the etc host. For example, in my cluster, I add it into etc host, and it will point to this IP address. You can get it from the Docker inspect to get this IP address, and then you can curl this one, and the result is that here you will see that the matrix is from the class 1, and it report the container advisory matrix. Okay, I think that's all I want to talk about. Any questions?
Yeah, so I think we also need to, we will also going to make it as a Helm chart, right?
Yes, that is on plan. We will make the OpenTelemetry add-on as a Helm chart, so it is easy to install.
Cool.
Okay, I will fix that problem. Okay, thank you. If no more questions.
Thank you, Changlin. Any question for Changlin, Kujang? Okay, thank you everyone for joining today. See you all next time. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.